Back before Nintendo gave us 3D technology that worked in a portable device with the Nintendo 3DS, we got a different device in the 1990s that wasn't as practical and didn't work as well with the Nintendo Virtual Boy. In episode 19 of Retro Buyer's Guide, we're going to take a close look at the Nintendo Virtual Boy and some of its games. Alright, so let's take a closer look at the Virtual Boy. So we are currently looking at the front of the Virtual Boy. As you can see, we have the lovely Virtual Boy logo, and the cartridges plug into the front here. Currently I have Wario Land plugged into mine. This is a very good game for the Virtual Boy. There were not too many released in North America, but this is one of the good ones. And again, they just plug really conveniently right there in the front. Not much other to look at on the front than those two things. We look at the top here, we have a couple of knobs. IPD, which stands for interpupillary distance. And this setting is basically meant to accommodate the width of your eyes from your nose. And depending, it's going to be different for each person. But you want to turn that to the left or the right. And you also have a focus knob. Again, for each person, that's going to be different because everybody's face is different, obviously, and when you have it mashed up against this thing, you're going to have different distances for viewing for each person. So it's going to be unique to the person. No one setting works for every person for every game. We're going to spin it around and look at the viewfinder part here. And this is where you're actually looking at the games. The oscillating mirrors are on the inside, which allow you to see the images in 3D. And it's a pretty neat effect. I'm not sure if you're really going to get the gist of it watching this video. There's no real practical way to show gameplay footage other than me just shoving the camera up against the viewfinder and showing you some games that way, which we'll do. I'll also show you some emulated footage, so you can at least get an idea of some of the games that I don't have. But there's no real substitution for the Virtual Boy other than just playing one yourself. It's a pretty neat effect, and if you can get your hands on one of these, it's a pretty cool piece of Nintendo history to have. We'll take a look at the bottom real quick. Again, you have your cartridge port, which we looked at earlier. We have a headphone jack here, and then a volume knob, which you can turn up or down here. And then we also have a controller port on this side and an extension port, which curiously, Nintendo put on the device to have link capabilities. So if you knew someone else with a Virtual Boy, you could theoretically hook them together. I don't know how many games had that feature, or if any actually had that feature at all. I'm not sure on that, but that feature is in the Virtual Boy. So let's put this part here, and let's take a closer look at the controller. So the controller is actually pretty good. It's vaguely reminiscent of a GameCube controller. We'll look at the port real quick, which is very, very similar to a regular NES. Again, plugs into the bottom of the Virtual Boy unit. And then we have a D-pad on the left here and a D-pad on the right. Select and start buttons, and then B and A. And probably the most interesting thing about this controller is that you turn the system on using this controller. So this is your on and off switch right here, and when it's plugged into the Virtual Boy, that's what turns the system on. Pretty neat that is part of the controller and not the system itself. That's about it. You got a huge battery pack here on the back that powers the system, and that's the Virtual Boy controller. Again, it's very comfortable to hold, surprisingly. So again, we're going to take a look at some footage of some games. I'll put the camera as close as I can to the viewfinder, try and get it dark in here so that you can see it, and then again, we'll take a look at some emulated game footage.
So the first game we're going to take a look at is Wario Land for the Virtual Boy. This game is generally considered to be one of the better games for the Virtual Boy library, and we're viewing it on an actual Virtual Boy. I kind of rigged my camera to be right up against the eyepiece. Um, as you can see, it's a 2D platformer, not unlike some of the other Wario Land games, but they did try to do some interesting things with 3D, like this effect here. And you can see it's a pretty fun game. It's a basic platformer, but Wario can get a lot of different hats and different power-ups that make it fun to play and kind of breeze through. There are also some mini games that you can play after each level where you randomly pick a balloon and see if you win. And obviously, you can see in this footage, I'm very bad at it. But anyway, let's take a look at some more Virtual Boy games that I've emulated and conveniently put together for you in a montage.